Okay, Sonia, would you introduce our guest speaker this evening?
Thank you. Yeah. Well, back in the spring, Sally brought a newspaper article from the Houston Chronicle to my attention about Northwoods Presbyterian doing Sleep in Heavenly Peace. And so teamed up with them this summer and did a build with our youth group with Northwoods at the Northwest Houston chapter of Sleep in Heavenly Peace. And we didn't really expect, I told her, well, it's a early morning in summer, it's hot, it's August. We might get 2 or 3 people signed up. We had like 10. We had 10 youth, very excited to go, leaders that wanted to go. So just a great response. Um, so that was how we got connected with the Northwest Houston chapter. And the youth has asked to continue the relationship, and there's been others that have also asked. So we wanted to invite Gary on to hear his story, how he's gotten involved with Sleep in Heavenly Peace in Houston, and hear about your mission, and hopefully ask some questions if there's time, and just talk a little bit about your work. So thank you for joining us, and I'll hand it over to you, Gary. So thank you. Oh, I just had one more thing I wanted to say. I'm sorry. Tucker is joining us from the Prayers and Squares Ministry. We are looking at doing a partnership with making quilts for the children who are receiving the bunk bed that her team is going to lead. So just wanted to mention that she's on call tonight. So thank you, Kathy.
Well, thanks very much for allowing me to talk about one of my passions. And go ahead and flip the next slide, Gary. Sleep in Heavenly Peace is a 501c3 corporation, and that is our motto, that no kid sleeps on the floor in our town. It really isn't the kid's fault that they don't have a bed. And no matter what the situation is, if they're between 3 and 17, we want to address that issue. It was 10 years ago last Christmas, Luke Mickelson in Twin Falls, Idaho. The story goes, they had built a bed for one of the church families at Christmas. And after Christmas, his kids were complaining about what they didn't get for Christmas. I've got some lumber left. Let's go build another bunk. They put it on Facebook, and truthfully, the rest is history. And I'll tell you how that sequence happened. Today, it's in essence an international organization. We have now over 340 chapters, with some in Canada, and actually one in Bermuda, and one in Hawaii, which is, of course, the U.S. But in Houston, we have 4 chapters that cover 8 zip codes and pretty well surround the main part of Houston, although there's a lot of areas that we are still looking for coverage. Go ahead, Gary. The numbers are really there. When we started in 2018, most of the people that I got involved with in helping me put it together had been Habitat volunteers or hurricane repair volunteers, or whoever I worked with, and we really had no concept of the need. But it's actually pretty well found out that about 3% of the population are kids without beds. In Houston, the population is somewhere around 6 million. So multiply that out, that's a lot of kids that don't have their own bed. And certainly if you talk to a teacher, you'll find the benefit of a kid having it is significant in their learning ability. And it also, we find it gives them something to be proud of, that they have their own bed. Go ahead, Gary. As I mentioned, Luke Mickelson started the program in 2012, and through 2018, he had developed 9 chapters across the U.S., actually as far as in California. And again, it was headquartered in Twin Falls, Idaho. And in early 2018, a gentleman by the name of Mike Rowe made a visit. Mike was working with his program called Returning the Favor, which was a program that was sponsored by Facebook. And he not only negotiated a new lease for them for a building for 3 years, he brought a load of lumber, but most importantly, he put it on Facebook. And that's where I and a lot of other people saw it. And we began our chapter and built our first bed in August of 2018. Our chapter, the Houston North chapter, services 39 zip codes. And you can see there pretty much Cypress, Katy, North Houston, Tomball, and Spring. And they're highlighted in that. Okay, Gary. The next one. Excuse the numbers. It's kind of more beds than you build. I've got that one backwards. Go back one if you can.
Go back one.
Yeah. We've actually built 3,775 beds in our Houston North chapter and delivered 3,682 as of last Saturday in that 5-year period of time. To date, we're delivering, and we will deliver 1,500 beds in 2023. And there's no end in sight. I shared with you the numbers before, but we currently have over 800 requests in queue requesting delivery for beds. And at times it gets so far out of whack because we're delivering roughly 125 to 150 a month. So that's 5 or 6 months that we're behind. And we hate to get that far behind, so we shut it off. We shut it off for about 3 months this year already. And I went back and analyzed that. And in that period of time, that 3-month period of time that we'd shut it off, there were 1,282 requests for over 3,000 beds that were not really served. So I'm not sure we'll ever catch up, but we're certainly working at it. Go ahead, Gary. We were fortunate in that I had an acquaintance that was a deacon at the Met Church. And as we were starting our chapter, I met him at a mutual friend's memorial service. And he said, Gary, what are you going to do for a building? And I said, well, Bob, I really don't know. Still today, 90% of the chapters will load up a trailer on Friday night with their equipment. They'll pull it to a parking lot somewhere. They'll meet a Lowe's truck full over, and they'll build beds all day. They'll haul it back to the storage unit, and then they start delivering sometime later. We've been fortunate. The Met Church has furnished us a building totally free since day one. So we've never had to worry about that. Matter of fact, last year, they moved us around a couple times as they're remodeling their campus. And last year, they not only gave us a new building that we're in now, but they built 50 foot onto it for us. And so we have virtually everything inside. Oh, we do a couple things. We don't burn the inside. It's a little bit dangerous, but we do virtually everything inside. And you can see here the start of one of our. This is actually on the right hand of your screen is really the assembly line for the headboards. We have the impact wrenches in just about anybody. Well, I think we're limiting that to 16 with a drill because we don't want little kids drilling their fingers. So that closely. Go ahead, Gary. Again, more of our assembly line process. We're fortunate that it's laid out so that whenever a group shows up to work, there's already material there at that station ready for them to work. The one on your left is the assembly of the slats. And the one on the right is where we're dipping the side rails. We dip all the bad rails in the headboards in a vinegar solution that we marinate with steel wool for a week, and then it causes it to give you a good solution or good sealing of the wood, and it dries in seconds. And then on the right picture, you can see where we're actually branding good old Texas style. We're branding the bed with SHP. We do have a quality. Go ahead, you can switch, Gary. At the end of our line, before it goes to dipping and branding, we have a quality control station so that we're going over the bed. There's one thing we want to make sure is that when our people get out to deliver, is the bed goes together like it's supposed to. There's some holes that have to match up. We build usually 2 Saturdays a month that are regular builds. And the first Saturday we have is an open build where virtually it's open to anybody that wants to come and volunteer. And we use Sign Up Genius to register people in. We do have to control the crowd. We can't handle everybody, but we can handle up to close to 80 people on a build. On that same day, we will deliver between 50 and 60 beds. And here you see on the property, we're lined up kind of an assembly line. We'll have about 15 delivery teams, according to how many we're doing, but 13 to 15 delivery teams. Each team will have an experienced leader that's done it before and knows the rope. It's not rocket science, but it helps to know a little bit about how it goes together. And then they will take 3 volunteers. They can take more, but it needs at least 2 or 3 volunteers with them on each delivery. And so here we're gearing up for a delivery probably of about 50 or 60 beds on a Saturday. Go ahead to the next one. At the home, we assemble the beds. We, of course, deliver them free. We assemble them. We provide the mattress, comforter, pillow, and we make the beds. And this little girl on the right-hand side is a granddaughter of one that we delivered, I think, within the first few months of opening our chapter. And her grandmother had been out of a house for a year because of the flood. This was the only furniture that was in the apartment, but she was happy. and that's what keeps us all going, is the smiles that you see from the kids as well as the parents. More often than you want to imagine, and it just happened again last weekend. I heard from a group as to kids, we've delivered one as old as 13 that have never had a bed of their own. Next slide, Gary. Just some more shots of what the beds look like when they're going together. Northwoods Presbyterian Church has supported us from day one. It just so happened I sent an email to their mission committee chairman, who I knew very well, when I was starting up the program. And within a day, she called me back and said, "Gary, can you be at a meeting Monday to tell this story?" And I said, "Sure, you bet." Well, it just so happened they had a mission program that they had approved and had set aside money for, that had canceled. That was enough to start to buy all of our tools that we needed. So what a coincidence. It's amazing how things Northwoods also provides us with a room, it's a bedding room, and we have it stocked with all ages. And what we do is when we line up the number of people that we're going to deliver on a Saturday, there's a sheet produced for each one as the age and gender of the child. And so we have a group of bedding angels that get together about 3 days before the delivery, and they'll take the list and say, "Oh, okay, this is a girl, and she's 3 years old," and somebody will go and put that together with a pillow and with a mattress cover. Or if it's a boy 10 years old, it's interesting. I stay out of the discussion. It's interesting to watch. Sometimes they'll have 3 or 4 vote on which one they should put together. But again, that all goes into a trailer, and then we haul it to the delivery site, and it's marked for stop. About 75 to 80% of our bedding is actually donated. We have a number of, obviously, churches, Young Men's Service League, National Charity League, Jack and Jill organization, and they will do bedding drives. And that really helps offset some of our costs and helps us to build more beds. Next slide, Gary. %90 of any donation, of any cash donation, 90% of any cash donation to our own local chapter goes to building beds. We're fortunate enough, we have no overhead. The only overhead we have is buying water for the build, which in the summer gets quite intense. But anyway, we buy water, sandpaper, and occasionally a tool, but a lot of the tools are donated. It costs, if we were to buy everything for a bed, it costs $250 to build a bed. When we started in 2018, it was $250 for a bunk, 2 beds. So things have changed. But anyway, the sponsor, and we have David Weekly as an example, as a sponsor. They'll come out 2 days, usually in May, 2 mornings, and they'll build 140 beds in 2 days and write us a check for about $26,000. And that covers all the lumber, the mattress, the comforters, and the hardware to put those together. But here you can see that if somebody were to sponsor a 40-bed build, it would be $10,000, and of course it would get 40 kids off the floor. Chandler Homes, which is in your backyard, I'm not sure if any of you are familiar with them. I've known Don Klein for probably 20 years. He had built with me at Habitat. And anyway, he sponsored a build with us in January just for the Boy Scouts. And that's, the sponsorships is what drives the organization. And I mean, the need is there to drive it, to know that you got plenty, but then the sponsorships is what keeps things going. Next slide, Gary. What's next for our chapter? We've actually been fortunate enough, and our new building has made a big difference, but of course the volunteers make all the difference in the world, and the funding. We've been able to double our output from last year. And I don't think we want to try to do that next year, but we want to keep increasing it because the need is so great. And we've started setting up distribution hubs. I have a distribution hub actually in Conroe that caters primarily to immigration. They've got to hook up and take care of some of those. We have a distribution hub on the west side of town that again works a lot with CPS and takes care of people that come out of CPS programs. And we've actually entered in with the Furniture Bank. I'm not sure you're familiar with them. They have a store on the southeast side of Houston, and they will then be performing the function just like we would if we were delivering a bed. And those are ways we can produce a lot of beds, but the delivery is one of the things where we can actually use more help. We'll continue to work on improving our social media presence. That's probably to be leads come for donors as well as for recipients. Gary skipped through to not the next slide, but skip over one. I didn't correct this. Most important thing about it is, how do we get our applicants? We make it as easy as possible for somebody to apply. All they have to do, and a lot of them come, there's some word of mouth, there's no question about that, but a lot of them come through Facebook or Instagram. And all they have to do is go to shpbeds.org, click apply, or they can do shpbeds.org apply. And then there's a form there that they fill out. All they have to tell us is obviously their name and address, the age and gender of the children, and what they're doing for sleeping. That then goes into a national database that is funneled back to the chapter by zip code. And you can see we use, certainly the Chronicle article was a big help to us. We've had community impact paper. We've been on Channel 26, and I think two did a program for our West chapter that gave us a lot of impact as well. And we're looking at how we can better serve the market that's there. One other thing we're considering is maybe even going to 2 shifts on Saturday. When I put out a notice for volunteers to build, and I ask for 75 or 80 people, it's filled virtually within 2 or 3 days. So there's plenty of people to help build. We just got to be able to funnel them in the right way. We can utilize that talent. That's really our story. It's been probably the most rewarding thing that I've ever been involved in that we not only provide a real service to that child, but to that family, but then we also provide an opportunity for literally thousands of people to do mission that might not have done mission before. The other nice thing about our process, our build process, we can, so long as they're with a parent, we can have a child 7 years old or older come, and we'll have something for them to do, so it can be a family affair. And I certainly welcome any questions.
Where do you get the mattresses from? Are they donated or bought or what?
We virtually buy everything. Occasionally, we have recently gotten a donation of a half semi-load of lumber, which was probably $25,000 that we can use. But we virtually buy everything, and we buy everything new. Most of the mattresses come from overseas. And there was a period of time that they were hard to get, and we had to start it. I did buy some for a period of time from the Houston Furniture Bank, but our supplier is about $20 a mattress cheaper, and that's and they're rolled and boxed. I don't know whether you've seen those on Facebook, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And they're a lot easier to handle on delivery.
Gary, when somebody applies and fills out the form that you talked about, are there any screening criteria that you use, or does basically everybody that sends you a form and apply eventually get one?
Pretty well. Everybody that sends the form in gets one, as long as they hang in there long enough. That's the tough part. And the market we're serving is very transient. So sometimes 3 months later, they don't have the same phone and we can't reach them. But basically, we call and we say, do you still need the beds? And we verify how they're sleeping. And they could tell me anything, and we go by that. And then when we deliver, we would like for the kids to be there. Now, they could be the neighbor's kids and we wouldn't know it, but I think in most cases that doesn't happen. I've had more cases than not where I've called the verify. I made an initial call, and then I called to verify that we're going to deliver on Saturday. And a person has said, I only need one bed. I don't need two beds. I got one. So I'm sure there's some taking advantage of the system, but it's not worthwhile when you consider how many you are serving.
Thank you.
I should mention that Lowe's is probably one of our largest, if not the biggest
Donor.
sponsor. They give SHP about $1.5 million a year that is then spread out to the chapters, obviously to go buy Lowe's lumber.
Yeah.
But and they give us a pretty good price.
So how many sites do you have in the Houston area to cover all those zip codes?
Well, we have 4.
4. I guess I missed that earlier, yeah.
Right. We have one is called Houston West, and I consider Montgomery County as Houston. There's one in Montgomery County, ourselves. Then there's one on the southeast side, and then we're starting to set up hubs. We will take a truckload of beds over to Hull and deliver out of there once a month.
Gary, I've got a couple questions for you. In the beginning, when you said you had to break for a period of time, is that a manpower or a financial limitation that you have?
No, the need has gotten well beyond what we can keep up with. We'll deliver, right now we're delivering somewhere between 120 and 150 beds a month. We hate for that to stretch out to where it's 6 months before somebody gets a bed. We'd rather shut it off and then open it back up. And so when our list gets to 1,000, we're 7 months behind almost.
Okay.
So, yeah.
And are you building twin beds only?
Yes.
Okay.
And we'll deliver a single or a bunk.
Okay.
The average is a bunk and a single. That's the average delivery.
Okay. We were recently with my brother-in-law, and we found out that he's also participating with this program in San Antonio, which we were not aware of.
That's the largest chapter in the system. They'll
really?
pass 5,000 beds this year.
Wow.
But they've been doing it a year and a half longer than we have. So
Yeah, great. Okay, thank you.
now they do a phenomenal job.
And Kathy, somehow the WCPC quilt makers are going to tie into this too?
Absolutely. So, and I'm not sure if Gary is aware of that, aware of what's going on nationally with, I'm a Studio 180 certified quilt instructor. It's a national certification, and Deb Tucker is the founder of this particular company. And they have partnered with Sleep in Heavenly Peace for Quilts Across America. And so I brought this to the ladies in the group, and they were very much on board. And then we talked to Sonia about it. And so right now what's in the works is we have the blocks we're building right now of the quilt. We're making a queen size quilt, and we'll have that ready for the alternative market online. And the intent of that is we'll be auctioning that off, and the proceeds for that are going to be going to help fund. We have enough fabric to make the tops, but we need fabric for the backing, the batting, the starch, and also it's gone out the window here. But so those resources will help fund that. And then for Love Your Neighbor Day, we are going to be teaching 3 different patterns of quilts for the youth and also for members of the church that day, so they can learn a new skill of quilting and sewing. And then we will finish those. Our goal, hopefully next year, is to have 20 quilts. So
We will be exhibiting at the International Quilt Festival.
awesome.
Okay.
Sounds like some great opportunity.
Absolutely.
It's great how all this comes together.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Uh, there's been a lot of blessings in the process. That's for sure.
Well, thank you, Gary. Thank you for joining us.
You're welcome.
Yes, indeed.
Thank
Great
you.
Thank
presentation.
you.
We enjoyed meeting you and hearing about it. So, well,
Sonia, is somebody there on their schedule for builds?
they're looking at doing it probably in the spring. We have a small youth group, but they do want to get involved in delivery. So that was what. So
Have we looked into if there's a build day when we're doing Love Your Neighbor Day? Because that would be a wonderful project
Opportunity.
for us to have for Love Your Neighbor Day.
yeah, we're the last Saturday of January. Is that a build day, Gary? It's January 28th.
I don't have that in front of me yet, but I'll look it up and send you a note.
Okay, yeah,
Please do.
January 27th. Sorry, it's a Saturday. Yeah.
We have a church-wide mission blitz day is the best way to describe our Love Your Neighbor Day, Gary. We go out, we do projects on campus, but we also go out to other sites and have projects around with our mission partners around the community.
Northwoods calls theirs Make a Difference Days.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Well, if no other questions, thank you very much. Great
Thank
audience.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.